Next up in the book, still talking about the indirect technique of entering into the phase, aka having a lucid dream astral projection or OBE. I want to talk about something that I briefly mentioned in the previous post while talking about the deferred method. And so everything we got coming up for the next several videos is going to be about the indirect technique and the deferred method. So just to recap what the deferred method is, and I'll probably have to do this in like every one of the subsequent videos coming up. It's basically like a very specific form of wake back to bed, right? Like you sleep a good 6 hours or so, set an alarm, wake up, stay awake for a little while, then go back to sleep. And then upon each natural awakening that will happen from that point on, you want to utilize those moments to rep through a bunch of these techniques that we'll be covering, in the next several videos. So the first technique that he actually mentions in here is one that has not been successful with me yet, but I think that's also just because I'm so used to doing it the way that I typically do it that I'll just always default to that. But he recommends that you try to wake up at a specific location within your bedroom, right? And he actually recommends using a mirror, which I think is also extra cool because if you're reading a lot of these lucid dreaming don'ts lists that you'll find online or wherever else, one of the most common things you see in there is not to be looking in mirrors in your lucid dreams. And I always thought that was funny because for me, it's never really a problem. I actually like finding mirrors on the occasions that I can. And sure, sometimes you'll look at them and you might look scary or something like that within the mirror. But, even if that is the case and that's what people's recommendations are, where they say not to do it, who cares if it looks scary? It doesn't really matter. If it does look scary, then just go walk someplace else. But I find them fun because you can utilize them for a lot of different things, right? You can ask it questions and see how your image responds to it. You can try to teleport through it, a whole bunch of fun stuff that can be done with mirrors. And it actually reminds me of and this is actually the number one thing that I see on lucid dream and don'ts list that I totally disagree with. Although I've seen enough people comment on my videos about this that I guess it is a kind of common thing, but that recommendation of not to tell dream characters that they're in a dream or they're not real or that you're dreaming or whatever because they get all mad. I do that kind of stuff all the time in my lucid dreams, and the extreme majority of the time, the dream characters are cool with it, or, maybe they just don't really care, right? But they're like indifferent. But what I always like to do if I am going to pose that question, I'll pretty much always go ahead and show them some lucid dreaming stuff, take them flying, walk up walls, walk through a wall, teleport somewhere, or do whatever else. Take them on the adventure with me. But anyway, as I get totally sidetracked, he recommends to immediately upon awakening, trying to appear at your mirror, and he writes, since physiologically speaking, we wake up in the phase or in a state close to it, why not immediately try to appear at your desired and predetermined destination? For example, the first destination for a novice should be the mirror. Upon each awakening, and we'll try not to move or open your eyes, and that's a very important part of it, the novice should try to immediately appear at their mirror, or any other place, but he likes to recommend the mirror. To do so, try no matter what to feel yourself standing at your pre-selected mirror for 3 to 5 seconds. And that's how long he recommends to do all of these different things we'll be getting into in the next videos, all these different methods or techniques. You try for 3 to 5 seconds. If it doesn't work, you move on to the next thing. So you try to appear at the mirror for 3 to 5 seconds. You need to scrutinize both the mirror, assuming you're successful and get there. Scrutinize the mirror itself and your reflection in it. Try to touch the mirror and try to feel your whole body alongside it while scrutinizing and touching everything around it, right? So the more you interact with your dream spaces, it tends to solidify and make the dream more stable. Now, occasionally you can be putting forth too much effort into trying to do this and it can actually cause the dream to break down and wake you up. So, that's a kind of fine line you got to learn to walk, but with practice, you'll figure it out pretty quick, I think. If you suddenly get even a weak sensation of being at the mirror, then that's already the phase right there. If sensations are vague, then you need to proceed to deepening, basically doing all the stuff we're just talking about. If unable to appear at your mirror after 3 to 5 seconds, then immediately try to separate from your stencil using other techniques. And we'll be covering a bunch of those coming up. But some of the main ones you can try is to simply stand up, roll out, or levitate. I've had success with those. Try to do it with your own perceived body, right? And not move your real physical muscles. However, when you move in this state, it does feel like you're moving your real physical muscles. So that could be another kind of thin line you got to learn to kind of figure out and walk. When the moment comes, don't think too hard about how to do it. Stubbornly try to separate from your stencil any way you can and no matter what. I think some of the way he writes in here, you can tell this was like translated from other languages because I don't think most, English-speaking writers would write it quite like this. Anyway, besides the point. Most likely, you'll intuitively know how to do it. The most important thing is not to think too hard and not to lose those first seconds of awakening. Again, that's very crucial. You want to do this immediately upon waking, right? So you wake up, maybe the first thought should be like, don't move or open your eyes, and then immediately start repping through a bunch of this stuff. If you are able to separate, immediately go to the mirror and carry out your previously determined plan of action. So that's his first recommendation there. You know, it must work if that's the first one he gave, although it hasn't been that successful for me. And we'll move on to the other techniques next.